So today we're going to be talking about writing linear equations. So first we're going to start off by looking at our graph, just a blank graph. We're going to talk about where the x's and y's are and what the values are. So if I have my four quadrants here, this is my x-axis right here. Okay, anything on this side is a positive x. Anything on this side is a negative x. Same goes for y. Here's my y-axis. Okay. We have anything up here is a positive y, and anything down here is a negative y. Okay. My y-intercept is where my line crosses on my y-axis. Okay. So where the line crosses on the y-axis. Okay. So if I, for example, had a line that went something like that, okay, it looks like if I count up here, it's in between my 2 and my 3. So I could say my y-intercept for this graph would be maybe 2.5. Okay. X-intercept is the same thing. It is where the line crosses x-axis. Okay. And so in this case, it's right around the 2, so that would be right at the 2. The x crosses it. If I draw a line, let's see one going this way. Okay. Okay. In this case, for my x-axis, it crosses right around about -3.5. And in this case, it crosses right about -4. Okay. If I have a line that goes through my origin, my 0, 0, the y-intercept where it crosses it is at 0. Same thing goes for the x; it crosses it at 0. So that's my y-intercept and my x-intercept. And we're going to use this intercept, especially the y one, to go ahead and be able to graph equations and figure out equations from our graphs. And to do that, we're also going to use this slope-intercept form equation. And that is y equals mx plus b. Okay. My y in this equation stands for my y coordinate. Okay. My x stands for the x coordinate. Okay. So if I went back to my original one right here, okay, and I had a coordinate anywhere on my line, say I can even say this 0, 0, it would be a 0, 0 would be the values there. Okay. If I went to one of these different ones right here, we could say it would be, for this one right here, I would say my x value is a 2 and my y value is a 0. Okay. So those are just a couple examples. That's the coordinates on there. My m, and I know it's weird to use the letter m in there, but m is my slope. Okay. The m is the slope of the line. And then my b is my y-intercept. So this is a very important equation, and some very important values you're going to need to remember. So my example page here, I'm going to go ahead and do for you. I'm going to go ahead and write my equation up here. Y equals mx plus b. Alright. Now I'm not going to go ahead and fill out my y and my x. I'm going to leave those blank, because eventually I'm going to insert values into them to go ahead and check to see if my answer is correct. But I am going to go ahead and figure out my y-intercept and my slope. So in this case, my y-intercept is, put it right there, is a 2. So I'm going to put a 2 underneath my b. I'm going to do y equals blank, my slope x plus 2. And it's a positive 2, so it's going to be plus 2. Then my slope I can go ahead and figure out. I just take 2 points on my line. So in this case, I'll take the y-intercept point, and then I'll take the one right above it, and you can see how it goes through two lines. So my slope in this case is a 1 to 1, so I can say it's a 1 over 1. Now when I rewrite this, I'm going to actually simplify my slope here. That 1 to 1 just simplifies down to 1, so I go y equals x, meaning 1x, plus 2 is my equation. Now I can go ahead and check to see if this works. I can enter, honestly, whatever value I want in there. If I want to come over here and enter in my -2 for my x, if I enter in -2 here, it's -2 plus 2 is 0, so y equals 0, and yes, -2, 0 would be my coordinate there. If I come up here and enter, say I enter 2, let's say this time I enter 4 for my y, so I put a 4 right here, subtract 2 on both sides, 4 minus 2 is 2, x has a value of 2, 4, 2. So my equation does work. Okay. Second example I can do for you, I'm going to go ahead and write my slope equation here. Okay. So y equals mx plus b. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and plot my y-intercept there, because that's my value of b, and that is at a -2. So I have y equals my slope x minus 2 in this case, because it's at a -2 spot. Now I'm going to go ahead and find my slope. So I have, there's where one value goes, and then it looks like down here this -5, 1 is where another one crosses. Okay. So my slope would be my rise over run, so I'm coming down 1, 2, 3. So it's a -3 over going over once. So -3 over 1. I can simplify -3 over 1 to y equals -3x minus 2. Same way, I'm going to go ahead and plug in a value just to check and see if I'm correct. So let's plug in, let's go up here. Let's plug in 4 for my y. Okay, so I'm going to actually check it over here. I'm going to say 4 equals -3x minus 2. I'm going to add 2 to both sides. And I get 6, -3x. Divide by -3. And I get -2 is equal to x. So when I plugged in my 4y, and it looks like I get x is my -2, so yes, that does work. Okay. Alright, last one for you. Alright, looks like this time I have a 0 slope, my line's going straight across, okay? But I'm still going to go ahead and put in my my y-intercept there, which is a -2. So I'm going to draw write my original equation, y equals mx plus b. Okay. Let's go ahead and plug it in then. Y equals blank x plus, and it's actually not a plus, it should be a minus, because it's in the -2 spot. So y equals blank x minus 2. And then I need to go ahead and figure out my slope. My slope in this case is there is no rise. There's just, it runs along, so it's 0 over blank. So it's a 0 slope. We talked about that. So I'm going to put a 0 here. Okay. Now if I were to go ahead and simplify this, my equation equals y equals -2. And the reason that's my equation right there is because any number that I put in for x, I'm going to multiply by 0, and the answer is going to be 0, so there's going to be no value there. Okay. So when I plug my x or y into these equations right here, okay, basically I'm saying that my value of y is always going to be -2. If I plug in an x, the value is still going to be -2. So that's why it can be simplified down to that. So if I take this one right here, I say the x is 3, the y is automatically going to be -2. If I take right here, x is 5, the y is still going to be -2. So it doesn't matter what value I put in for x, the y is always -2. So I can put on whatever value I want for that one. And there's really no way to check that. It just, y equals -2 should be my y-intercept, and it should be consistent the whole way through. Okay. So those are 3 examples for you. What I'd like you to go ahead and do now is try 3 examples yourself. Okay. So here's your examples. So go ahead and pause the video. Make sure when you're doing these, make sure you actually write down the original equation. Y equals mx plus b for each one of these. It's going to make it a lot easier for you to go ahead and think about what needs to go there. Okay. So again, pause your video, try them, and let's go ahead and see how you did. So my first one, I got a slope of, let's start with our y-intercept. I have a y-intercept of -2 down here. Okay, and then it looks like I have a slope of 1 over 1. It's a positive slope, so that gets simplified to y equals x minus 2. For the second one, I have a y-intercept of 3, so it's a +3 positive. And again, it's a 0 slope, so I put a 0 there. And any value of x you give, the y is automatically going to be 3. And then lastly, we have our negative slope here. So my y-intercept in this case is going to be 0. So that's why I have a +0 there. And then I found my slope to be a -1, so I'm coming down 1, and then I go over 2, so -1 over 2. So y equals -1 over 2x. And then I leave my slope out because it's just +0. There's no value there. So that is creating linear equations from our graphs.